Hi, my name is Justin Etheredge, and I'm from Contextual.com. I'm here today for part 2 of my series on dependency injection with Ninject. Today we're going to talk about a particular feature in dependency injection frameworks called contextual binding. When we left off last time, we implemented our custom module, we implemented our caffeinated interface. We had two classes that implemented this interface. One was called Mountain Dew, and the other was called Diet Coke. And we were binding these using our custom module we created. And here we see what caffeinated is bound to Mountain Dew. We had our programmer class that we were asking Ninject to create for us. And we were calling programmer.write code, which wrote out a string indicating what kind of drink the programmer was currently drinking. Today we're actually going to look at implementing a little more functionality into this. First, I think we're going to start off by creating a new interface. And this interface is actually going to be called iEditor. Now, as we know, all programmers need caffeine and they need something to write code in. So here we're going to say has a single method called code, which is going to return a string. Now let's go ahead and make that public. Let's move it to a different file. Let's go ahead and create a drive type. We're going to call this type and call it Visual Studio. Implement the members. We're going to say writing code, Studio. What is an editor? A little bit of humor there. Here we're going to have, let's do VI. We're going to say, alright, writing code and VI, and so delete. Go. Public. We'll move that to the other class. We can go ahead and move this one to another class. So now we have our iEditor interface. We have two classes that implement that interface, but Visual Studio and VI. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come to our programmer class that we had discussed last time. But now we're going to actually pass in iEditor. We're going to introduce a field for that guy. But now we're actually going to, well, let's see, let's add a console.writeLine for our new editor class. Go. We're going to make our programmer class abstract. We're going to have instead a Microsoft programmer. And we're going to have a Linux programmer. So what we're going to do now, our Linux programmer, is we're going to say, let's give it a little instructor. And we're going to go ahead and pass in iCaffeinated, iEditor. We're going to just pass these on to our base constructor. And then we're going to do the same thing for our Microsoft programmer. Compiles, okay. So now what we're going to do is come over here to our programmer. If we go ahead and we run it, we're going to see we got an error. We'll say, oh, well, we're looking for our type that doesn't exist. After request for programmer. Oh, actually, problem is that programmer is abstract. We can't do a self-binding on programmer. So we're going to have to actually change this to a Visual Studio. Oh, Microsoft programmer. So run this, we're going to get an error again. This time, well, we looked for iEditor. We couldn't find it. There's nothing bound to it. So, come down here. Say, okay, we'll bind iEditor to Visual Studio. Alright, so we got Mountain Dew and Visual Studio. It's great. So what happens now if we request the Linux programmer? Oh, we get Mountain Dew and Visual Studio again. Now that's works, but we all know that Linux programmers are not going to be using Visual Studio. So what we need is some way to tell Ninject that we don't want to bind Visual Studio to iEditor when we're using a Linux programmer. So what we can do is we can come down here and we can say, for members of Linux programmer, and then, put that backwards. So we can say, bind to V, Linux programmer, bind to Visual Studio, Microsoft programmer. Build that. I run this. Oh, we're writing in V for Linux programmer. Change it over to a Microsoft programmer. And now we're writing Visual Studio. Much better. So now one thing that you should know is that these contextual bindings down here are just shorthand for the actual methods that you could call to do contextual binding in Ninject. For example, for this line, we can say bind iEditor to Visual Studio. And you can say only if takes up. You can see it takes the predicate, the I context, and that's your binding context, and that's the context object that Ninject will give you during binding. And that actually allows you to access all kinds of information about the current binding. So here we're going to say context.member, and we can say member type, and that's going to give us the member type that we are binding from. So I can say type of Microsoft programmer. Oh, sorry, that is not right. It's member, and it is declaring type, Microsoft programmer. So if we take this out, build that, it's going to succeed. So essentially we're just doing the exact same thing that this for members of method is doing for us very simply. The important thing here too is that, as you saw when I actually used member type, was that it allows you to do other things. Member type, we can actually check to see if it's a constructor or a property. So theoretically you could bind iEditor to Visual Studio if it was a constructor, or you could bind it to something else like V if it was a property. Now, you probably won't want to do that, but I mean, the reality is that Ninject provides you with a lot of flexibility in its contextual bindings. So we'll look further in another episode with a few more of the things you can do with contextual bindings. But for right now, I think we're going to stop there. I hope you enjoyed part 2 in the dependency injection with Ninject screencast. I hope you check out the next part. Thanks.